All right, so here we go. We'll get going here again. October 27th, Monday, 2025, time-stamped. Boom, there it is. Again, some of my videos that I'm going to be posting will be time-stamped from the past. All right, so I figure why not bring some of the past topics into the present, because they directly relate to the future content of the channel. So for those who have followed this channel in the past, it had a bit of a political bias, and I'd like to stay away from the political bias as much as possible, given that regardless of who's more brainwashed, who's more manipulated through their external identities and all that stuff, we're all being manipulated in some way, fashion, or form if we do not have control of our minds. If we're not able to see through our political identities and not be pandered to through these identities that affects your emotions, and thus your behavior can be predicted. This affects everybody around you. This is the world we live in. So we're all in the same boat, and it's my duty to convey information regarding our institutions, institutional corruption and failure, our state of healthcare and public health. Morning. Crossing the road. Why did the chicken cross the road? Because he's recording a video and doesn't want to get hit by a car. Right, so all right, as we get out there, stride frequency and stride length, right? So we're out here walking. I'll get my 3 miles in today. I just finished a few sets of pull-ups, so I'm a little out of breath, but we'll work with it. And I'll eventually do intermittent sprinting, right? I'll sprint for 10 to 15 seconds, 2 or 3 times throughout my walk. All right, now, when I do this consistently, what I have found is that I'm going to target various energy systems in the body. I'm also going to, what I have found is that I've been able to reduce inflammation. So instead of going for long distance running, which has a significant impact on your joints over time, instead of doing the long distance jogging, which I'm accustomed to being a former military person, I'm going to do intermittent sprinting, right? Now, to further reduce my frequency of inflammation, I'm going to reduce inflammation due to my diet, food intake. That means I'm going to utilize fasting techniques. I'm not here to necessarily talk about these techniques specifically, only that I seek to control my inflammation. Inflammation being the word of the day here, right? Now, what is inflammation? Inflammation, off the cuff here, is a physiological response, a physiological bodily response to some external input. That leads to symptoms detrimental to your functional abilities, meaning your ability to perform daily tasks. So if you are inflamed in some way to a point where you can't walk to the grocery store, or you can't walk in a grocery store, or you're unable to perform physical activities or physical fitness, if you set physical fitness goals, you're trying to get to the gym, for example, being overweight, being obese, these are forms of inflammation. Your body responds to inflammation of a positive calorie intake, meaning you are inputting more calories than your body burns in a day. And so your body accumulates fat. Fats accumulate around your visceral organs. They accumulate under your skin. This is called, respectively, visceral fat and subcutaneous fats. Becoming overweight and obese is a form of inflammation. Now, most likely you became overweight and obese because you ate more calories than what your body burns. When you're eating excessively, which we could define excessive eating as eating more calories than your body burns, you're exposing your cells in your stomach, in your esophagus, in your mouth, in your intestines, in your arteries. Remember, your arteries go all through your body, through your brain, through your heart, through your liver, which means you're inflaming all of those things. Every time you eat excessively, that is a form of inflammation. That's the way you can think about it. When you eat a Western diet, every time you put food in your mouth, you are inflaming your cells, right? So when you put something toxic or foreign in your body, or something on your skin that is absorbed into your body, certain types of metal being an example, you inflame your cells. When you inflame your cells, or you put something in your body that leads to inflammation, your body naturally reacts with C-reactive proteins, right? These are types of proteins that react to something toxic or inflammatory being introduced into your system, right? So your body responds by releasing white blood cells, C-reactive proteins. And these things, depending on what you've ingested, for example, if you've ingested something with saturated fats that are high in cholesterol, specifically your low density lipoproteins, your LDLs, your bad cholesterol, your body will release certain things. Hormonal regulation occurs, and your body releases these proteins and your white blood cells. And over time, through frequent inflammation, this turns to plaque, for example, in your arteries. So I teach a class over the weekend, and the average age of the folks in this class was 70 plus years old, easily. Now, I'd like to get my hands on a younger class, a younger generation, right? So perhaps you can share this video with somebody in their late teens, in between the ages of, let's say, 16 and 40, let's say 50, if you haven't suffered a heart attack already, right? The question was, Jeremy, you mentioned fasting. Don't you get hungry when you fast? And that question prompts me into a soapbox rant where I say, yes, you get hungry at first. You're programmed to eat 3 meals a day if you're an American at least, and then you're programmed to snack. And you have access to access, and therefore you can eat whatever you want when you want if you choose to. And then there are other factors involved, such as emotional instability. If you're thinking irrationally and you're stressed out, we're most likely to eat poorly and more frequently, right? There is a correlation between anxiety and depression and overweight and obesity. Okay, so I say, all right, you're hungry at first, but this is where you learn. Life is an experiment, right? You learn by writing down in the journal, when you're fasting, how many times you think about food during that fast. That is an indicator that's going to show you how much you're programmed to think about food and how distracting your food can be at first. As you practice, what does practice make? Perfect, right? So we practice, and over time, we learn to handle our cravings, our impulses to eat. Those impulses represent what would be otherwise inflammation. But because we have overcome the impulse, we therefore reduce the frequency in which we're eating. So I am not only fasting, but I'm reducing inflammation frequency. So it's all about inflammation frequency. In those moments when you eat a certain volume of food, that's going to correlate with the volume of inflammation, right? Increased amount of food intake in Western diet, increased amount of inflammation. It's a linear relationship, okay? Doesn't matter what you eat at this point, because it turns out corporation owns a lot of our farmland and they seek profit over quality. All right, so we lost storage space. I think I have some cleared here. Let's finish this. So corporation takeover of your farmland leads to poor quality of soil, poor quality of food, right? Now, if you look at inflation in the last 5 years and you look at the quality of food in our corporate restaurant industry, chain restaurants, for example, even just fast food, as if the quality of fast food couldn't possibly get worse than it is to begin with, even at its healthiest level, is disgustingly terrible, right? So, and I don't mean to put a bad mark on Olive Garden, because that's probably the tastiest chain restaurant that you could get right now. Everything else has just gone to hell. Go investigate it just for an experiment, right? The quality of food is terrible compared to what it used to be, even though it was never good for you anyway. It's really bad now. So when corporation gets their hands on your farmland, this happens. We must reduce frequency of inflammation, right? And find alternatives. There are alternatives out there right now. It's going to cost you much more. It's going to cost you time, effort, and dedication and diligence to research these things, which is why we do this channel to begin with, right? Take what I say. Don't follow me. Just subscribe. Take what I say and go investigate certain things. Go investigate Amos Miller in the great state of Pennsylvania and how they, as an Amish community, are up against the fence against the Department of Agriculture in the state of Pennsylvania and the Food and Drug Administration federally, right? Or nationally. Okay? All of these administrations, these institutions, we'll talk about their corruption. That's a prime example. We have to reduce your frequency of inflammation, right? Increase in testosterone levels leads to more inflammation. Increase in cortisol levels leads to inflammation, right? We're stressed out, you eat more. You eat more, you become more inflamed. Over time, we're talking about atherosclerosis, the plaque buildup of your arterial walls. Keep in mind, your arteries are muscles. They vasodilate, they vasoconstrict, right? This is what they do naturally. This helps regulate your blood pressure so that it is ensured that oxygen gets to your brain, other nutrients gets to your brain and other tissues so that your tissues can function properly. This leads to better metabolic health or lack thereof. Keep in mind, cancer is derived from inflammation to start with. It is a metabolic disease by which pathways are opened for the growth of cancerous cells, in a nutshell. So you reduce inflammation, increase physical activity, change the way you're conducting your physical fitness. For example, doing simple interval sprints as opposed to long distance sprinting, changing these things up, giving yourself an opportunity to rest and recover. Very important. Keeping in mind, fasting from afternoon until the morning is a great way of fighting inflammation. Why? Because you give yourself 6 hours in between your last meal and bedtime, and then you give yourself 8 hours of sleep when the majority of your recovery occurs. You've allowed your body to fight a little inflammation during the day, process everything, and then recover with a little fasting. What do we do when we fast? We're reducing our calorie intake. right? Remember, we're eating too much. It's important to consider that we have been eating too much. We have access to excess. And so there's my spiel on inflammation and reducing the frequency of inflammation and its, in a nutshell, effect on your body. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a set of pull-ups and some other exercise equipment to manipulate before we put the work in today.